Hi, welcome to BIPOC Perioperative Leaders to Know 2021 edition. My name is Carissa Brewster, and I'm the writer for Whitman Partners. And today's guest is Tashma Watson. And in a moment, we'll jump into questions, and we'll have about a 20 to 30-minute discussion. But before we start, Tashma, if you can just introduce yourself and your position and the facility that you work at.
My name is Tashma Watson. I am the Assistant Vice President for Surgical Services at the State University of New York, Health Sciences University Downstate Medical Center. I'm a registered nurse of 15 years now, all in perioperative services, specifically the operating room.
Great, nice. So what drew you into the medical field?
You know, when I was little, I just wanted to help people. Originally, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And then I think as I got older and actually had some internships in high school in healthcare, I decided to do nursing instead of traditional medicine. And it's a decision I will never, ever regret.
What made you specifically pivot to nursing? Specifically, is it just kind of the helping piece? Because nurses pretty much do all the work.
I wanted to help. I wanted to do the work. I don't mind doing the work. I like the work. And I wanted to be close to patients. I wanted to be close to people. So I like people. So that's kind of what pulled me into nursing. And by far the best decision I think I've ever made was to become a nurse, and I love it.
Awesome. In your professional experience, have you ever experienced or witnessed discrimination?
You know, I've been very fortunate. I don't think I've ever experienced it. I've heard stories. I've heard people talk about different experiences that they've had in nursing, especially in the past. I'm very grateful that I haven't had to endure those things, and it's maybe because they did, but not in my tenure, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. Did you find any difficulty with finding or knowing where opportunities were for you to advance, or was that pretty easy for you?
I don't think the career path was ever really clear. I think once I started in nursing and I started in perioperative services, I made decisions about what that should look like and what my personal goals were for my own advancement. Education played a big part in that. Pursuing a master's degree and then ultimately a doctorate changed my perception of what my goals would be. So it went from being a nurse manager to a director to wanting to be a senior level leader. But all of that happened as I was working in nursing. It wasn't the initial thought in any way that I would start out and automatically my goal was to be a chief nurse or a vice president. That was never the plan for me. It was to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm. And so once you became a nurse and started working, do you remember the times where it hit you where you're like, I want to go further in this, I want to go higher?
You know, in perioperative services, a lot of the nurses were older. They had been doing it a lot of years. And I remember them saying to me that I should give myself options and create the path so that I would have opportunities later on in life. So if I didn't want to do bedside, if I didn't want to be in the operating room per se, I would have the ability, the flexibility, the opportunity to move on, to move up, to move out, to do different things. So it started with older nurses kind of taking me aside as a new nurse, brand new, as a new graduate, right out of school, and saying, give yourself options now so that you're not my age trying to figure out what else you can do. And it made sense.
That's cool. So basically people kind of took it upon themselves to mentor you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
It helped because I went through a residency program in perioperative nursing. So I got to work with, more experienced and seasoned nurses who kind of gave me those little tidbits along the way to say, hey, don't just look at tomorrow. Think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. do you see yourself still doing this? And I go, well, I don't know, but it's not a bad idea to have options in case I don't.
Right, right. Do you have any concerns about the lack of diversity and inclusion in the OR, specifically at the higher levels like director and VPs?
I mean, I think that's changing now. I think in the past it was probably not as diverse as it is now. I mean, I've seen people on like LinkedIn and a lot of the social media sites who are in senior level positions in perioperative services. And you have to know and wonder what they went through to get there, how long it took them to break those barriers, and kind of understand that maybe 20 years ago, those probably weren't options. But I'm thankful they are now.
Yeah. So that's great. So you're seeing the tide beginning to turn.
Mm-hmm. At least I think so. I mean, even in my own personal experience, I've held a few leadership positions now, and I don't know that that would have been possible 20 or 30 years ago. I'm glad that I'm in this position and in this role now, and I'm glad that I am where I am now, and I've come up when I did, because those options are available now, and they probably weren't then.
Yeah, so it sounds like a part of that for you was the mentoring piece from nurses. And then what do you think organizations like Women Partners, talent acquisition professionals, and just higher ups like in the C-suite, what can they do to kind of improve and have a pool where the pool of candidates are as diverse as possible?
I think I was fortunate enough, mentorship, I swear, is like one of the things I live by, because I've had mentors from the C-suite and various institutions as I've moved through my career who have helped me kind of see that there are other options. So I think the exposure is the first and foremost important thing, is to expose people to the opportunity, to know that there are options, and then how to go about it. A lot of people will say they would if they knew how or what they needed to do. So just arming people, especially now that I think the younger generations want to know, how do they move up? What do they have to do to move up? Do they have to go back to school? Are there specific credentials? Are there specific degrees? Giving people that information and access to that information, I think, is everything in diversifying, expanding. And, for some people, it's just a knowledge deficit. People just don't know what options are out there. Even in nursing, some nurses may not know that there's more than just the chief nurse. And the chief nurse is a very reputable position, but there are other opportunities that are afforded to you because you've got clinical knowledge and background. And I think just educating people and exposing them to it is leaps and bounds the most effective way to pique interest.
Mm-hmm. That goes into my next question about your advice for aspiring perioperative leaders, people that I guess know that they want to move up. What you just said pretty much applies.
I also think you don't set a ceiling. You don't say, oh, I just want to become this. I just want to become a director. I just want to become a manager. Aim for the stars, shoot for the moon, and where you land and what you hit is limitless. But if you didn't aim, where are you going?
Right, right. And in terms of people that may not know, that's probably where the mentoring comes in. So when a young nurse comes in, like, how has that informed have you mentored anyone?
I've worked with students. I've worked with students on the master's level. I've worked with students on the undergraduate level. The exposure is everything. For them knowing that there are different opportunities, non-traditional routes that they can take when they finish school is critical. It helps open the door to so many other opportunities and other possibilities that maybe you wouldn't have even considered, because all you know is the box. Coming outside of the box, coming outside of the traditional models is critical. It's everything. It's important.
Right. So we're obviously, we're experiencing the surge with COVID because of the Delta variant. Vaccine hesitancy is a problem in different populations for different reasons. Specifically with the Black community, what are your thoughts and feelings on how to encourage more of us to get vaccinated, address the misinformation out there? What are your thoughts?
Educate. Educate.
Mm-hmm.
Our responsibility is to make sure that people have accurate information. They have all of the information, and they have information that they can understand. So, sometimes in medicine, the understanding and making sure that people understand is what's missing. So our responsibility, particular with this and this sensitive issue, is to make sure that people understand all of the information and the decisions that they make, the consequences, the risks, the benefits, the alternatives, so that the decision that they make is an informed one. It's ultimately their decision, but our responsibility is to make sure that it's an informed decision, that it's one where they were able to understand and process all of the information and all aspects of it and respect their decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How have things been where you are with the surge in terms of the stress? I mean, there's so much stress that nurses are going through nowadays,
I think we're
especially in the
all
last several.
filled with a lot of anxiety about it because we all remember the first time around. And I think everybody's just hopeful that it's not that again, that we're able to do everything we can to prevent it from being what we saw in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I think about that all the time. I remember what it was like, and I never want to experience that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my last question is, do you have a favorite book or a current book that you've read that helps you inform your leadership style, or something related to your experience as a Black woman that has impacted you and inspires you?
I mean, I think I look at myself as my own worst critic. And so what I tell people, my saying is, my mantra, my theme is, perfection is the expectation, not the exception. You should always expect perfection from yourself, from the work, everything that you do. It shouldn't be the exception to the rule where if everything goes well, that's great. No, you should always expect it to be exactly as it should be. And if you have that as the mindset, everything and everybody you work with believes that as well. And they adopt those same feelings and opinions and principles. I don't look at the people that I work with as the staff. They're my colleagues, they're my coworkers. I try to look at things as my success is their success. My failure is their failure. If they failed, I failed. So we do it together every day. There's no one man who does it alone. I'm not a one-man show. There's nobody who is. So my everything is about us, we, the team. My books that I'm reading now, I hate to say it, most of what I'm reading is kid stuff. My kids are 2 and 5. I don't get to do a lot of my own reading. I'm teaching reading, and I'm reading Blue's Clues and Sesame Street books. And so I find sometimes, the little engine that could is more motivating than people realize, because I'm telling my kids from it, see, you can do anything. You just have to keep trying. You just have to keep trying. And sometimes I feel like we get so far away from the basics that we forget that it's those little things that make the biggest difference. So I guess if I had to pick a book right now, that's it.
A little engine that could.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we need that now.
Yeah. Like, don't feel like it's everything. Start with the smallest, simplest, basic thing. Keep at it, keep trying, keep working at it, and the success will come from it.
Nice. Well, Tashma, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know that you and people like you are incredibly busy. especially now with the COVID surge we're experiencing. But I just want to thank you for the work that you do and all nurses do and leadership. And I'm thankful. And I know a lot of people out there are, even when it feels like nobody's paying attention.
Thank you.